Welcome to the Six-Figure Author Experiment, where we help you break through your first or next $100,000 goal. Parental discretion is advised. Now, let's get on with the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Six-Figure Author Experiment. I'm Russell. Hi, Lee.
Hi.
Yay! And we are here with one of our good friends, Celeste Barclay, who has one of my favorite stories ever in publishing. Should I tell them the story before you introduce yourself, or do you want to introduce yourself and then I can tell you the story of you dictating sex scenes in shopping centers?
Oh, I need to hear the story.
Why don't we just go ahead and lead with that, Russell? And it wasn't shopping centers, it was a grocery store.
Sure, that's what I meant, but I couldn't pull the word, so I just said, yeah, like you. This is one of my favorite stories of all time because your books are raunchy, like in the best way possible. As two people who are currently launching a Menage Berserker series. I can say.
Book.
Yeah, yours is has a high level of heat, and I love that you are recording this in public.
Oh my God, heat is emanating from my cheeks right now. I didn't realize this was how we were opening. Let's go for it.
This is a safe place for all smut talk. It really is. And we love it, and we're here for it. And I want to hear about your dictation practices, because maybe this is what I need to do, is wander around Wegmans with my recorder.
But that's certainly one way to go through the produce section.
Yeah, but you had a book due and you were behind, right? And you were like, I'm just gonna do it. I don't know, because you were already dictating on long walks. You were like, I got shit to do today. Anyway, I'm gonna stop telling the story. You know how to tell it, but maybe first, just say hi. I'm Celeste. Here's what I do.
I don't mind if you tell the story. I'm Celeste Barclay when I write historical romance and when I talk about all things professional in the industry, but I'm also Sabine Barclay when I write mafia romance, and I was being Sabine that day in the grocery store.
Sabine is unhinged. I love her. We're here for it.
I love it. All right, so you got to go back to this story because it's when people always ask me, can I dictate? Or why should I dictate? Or what are the bounds of dictating? And I tell this story and I'm like, I don't say your name. I say I have a friend who recorded sex scenes in grocery stores, and so there are no rules.
There really aren't. So I was falling behind, and I was like, let me just see if I can try dictating while I'm running normal errands. And I have a lapel mic and a little recorder. So it probably would have been better if I'd had my phone. It would have looked more normal. But I was like, as long as I talk pretty quietly, I should be okay. So I'm walking into the grocery store. I'm dictating. Everything's fine in the produce section. By the time we get to the dairy section, we're in full on sex scene mode. And I am a fairly linear writer because I prefer that. I could do it differently, but I don't want to. So when I come to a scene, that's the scene that gets written. And I am a pantser. So when I entered the grocery store, I did not know that this was the direction that this was going to go in. I might have planned differently if I had. So I'm walking through the dairy section. I think I hit the pasta and the breads and stuff like that. And I'm dictating this kinky ass sex scene very quietly. And then by the time I got all the way down to the deli meats and the toilet paper, I'm killing somebody. I always say I like a good decapitation and dismemberment as much as I do a good orgasm. So I made sure that we had both that day. And I did eventually pause the recording when I got to the checkout and then picked back up as I was walking out to the car. I don't know if that was my very finest moment as an author or my least finest moment, but it worked. And perhaps I will not use the grocery store again. But I dictate in my car, I dictate on my walks, things like that. I will dictate on the way to an errand. I just might not do the grocery store. And luckily, I did not buy any knives or eggplants that day.
This is amazing. I love it. I just cannot hear that story enough times.
It just, like I said, it was either my finest moment or my least finest moment, but it happened and it worked. And in the space of the hour that I was there, I got 3,000 something words in. So,
Yeah, there you go, Lee. You just gotta dictate in more places.
I absolutely will. I love this.
I mean, we could talk about all of this stuff for like another hour, but like one of my favorite conversations that aren't about you dictating in grocery stores is
Yeah.
about consumer behavior. And I think it's really interesting how you've kind of molded this idea of your past and consumer behavior to like your career as an author. And um when people always ask me who is like the best person to talk to about like how readers think and like how authors should think, I always point them back to you.
Oh, thank you, Russell. I appreciate that. Just I guess to expand a little bit on my background, I have a bachelor's degree in international affairs. So it's a concentration in international political economy. So I understand how the economy works. I understand that it's cyclical. I understand the highs and the lows. I understand how people behave from a macro and a micro perspective when we are looking at times of belt tightening, recession, booms, all of that stuff, how politics influences that as well. Fast forward, I also have a master's in teaching in social studies and English. So I spent almost 15 years in the grade school classroom. And let me tell you, that's like 7.5 hours a day on the stage with a 30-minute intermission. It's also being this consummate salesperson to a consumer who does not want to buy your product. So knowing that and weaving in understanding how to explain things to people, especially when I am weaving in facts into my stories, whether it's my historicals or my mafia, not making it sound like a textbook. And then on top of all of that, because as though 2 degrees wasn't enough, I thought three was the charm. So I have a third degree. I have a master's in political management, which is basically PR, which is basically human marketing. That doesn't sound great, but that's what it is. So I always say if I can get somebody to vote on a candidate or vote on legislation, I can get them to buy a book. The book's harder, but I can transfer all of the skills that I've gotten from each of these 3 degrees into running my business. And it means that I do have a pretty good understanding of, the consumer journey thought process, how we tap into each of those, and how we can convince people to do the things we want them to do.
Yeah, I have screenshot from your branding talk for the book marketing boot camp. And every boot camp, I'm going to tell people to go watch that masterclass. But the screenshot is the slide where you say, what are the emotions the readers of your genre are craving? And Russell would say, well, as a forest, that is a very compelling question to you, Lee. But it really helps me. I can get a lot right by just saying I'm writing this genre, this subgenre with these tropes. But all of that is really about the emotions and delivering on the emotions. And it's just a great question for me to think through as a reader of, let's say, dark romance. What am I looking for? Is the book supplying that? And if not, where do I add it? And how many passes will that take? And you can do that and you can have bestsellers and people go, why does this book sell? Well, you're just not the target audience, Jan. It's for the person who really wants to be bred by werewolves. Let's face it. It's going to be for my paranormal or something.
Yeah.
That's the brand promise. That's what you're getting. And someone asked about adapting the comic, and it's very spicy, lots of nudity in the art, but it's not just about the smut, it's about the emotions. And several people, I think Ennis Johnson, I don't know who coined it, they call it the heartbeat moments. It's the moment of eye contact, who hurt you, the moments where the reader swoons. Obviously, you can get a lot wrong in your romance author career, but if you're delivering on that emotion, you're going to build an audience and they'll come to you for that emotional meal, that catharsis every time.
And I think it's important to understand that question goes both to craft and the business side. The craft side of it being what you just described in building your brand, your platform, what you are going to be known for. But it's also asking that question when you are creating your marketing content. What emotions do they expect to get when they see a romance book, a sci-fi book, a whatever book, just in general? And how do you take those emotional expectations and weave them into your ad copy, weave them into your graphics, weave them into your overall dynamic that you present to your readership, whether it's on social media, your newsletter, that sort of thing. So understanding the emotions that trigger people to buy is just as important as understanding the emotions that they want to have when they're reading a particular book.
Yeah, I was actually having a conversation with my wife. Let's say you're not writing romance, you're writing like nonfiction, or like you have a weird capitalist thing. I don't know what your weird thing is, and she was talking about she had to sell a program that she's doing internally at her office to like every center because she's a research director. And she's like, and I was just like, I always get nervous doing this. And I was like, oh, well, like, what is the process? And she did not talk. I was like, she listed a bunch of stuff and I was like, oh, but like, what's the transformation that this person is going to get from the end of it? Like, how is this the conduit for what they actually want? And what do they actually want? And the minute that you can say, oh, this is what someone actually wants, you can like reverse engineer what you have to do to get the, like, you can connect the pieces behind like your book and them doing a thing. But if you don't know what they want at the end of the day, like, you'll never be able to get them to, you'll only be able to guess at making that getting them to buy the book or taking the action you want. But like, you can tell any story you want to tell as long as like here's where I am, here's what I want, and my book is in the middle right here. It's going to get you this thing. You can chart that journey. Like, you can basically do anything, right?
One of the first things that we talk about when somebody's building a business is identifying who your audience is. And that's a very broad concept in actuality, because that looks at the demographics usually. But when you can narrow into the psychographics, like the interests, the hobbies, the values, those sorts of things, then you can start to segment them like we do with a newsletter. And you can realize that, yes, I have this commonality of age, gender, socioeconomics, those sorts of things, but I can parse them out even further by what their different types of behaviors are and target that. So building on your example of your wife, right? You have this overall company that's like your genre audience, but within that, you might have a marketing department, an analytics department, a human resources department, right? And nerding out on statistics is probably not going to matter that much to the HR department, right? But talking about company harmony and ethical behavior, that may be their go-to in that department. And understanding, yes, you have this broad audience, but within it, you have these different sections that need you to talk to them in different ways and address the things that matter to them specifically. And that's where understanding consumer behavior and understanding the different types of buyers and what their attitudes are can really help you to fine tune to make sure that you are hitting those trigger points. And within ad copy, within a graphic, within a newsletter, you can pull pieces that are going to resonate with all these different types of folks without saying, okay, well, I have to have a blog post that's just, well, not that many people blog that much. I have to have a social media post that is just for them. I have to have a newsletter, article, or message that's just for them. Weave it in so that you have one item, but it has all these different touch points.
Yeah, I'll give you an example from my own experience. So I worked with Monica for a long time. And when I started working with Monica, I started getting a lot more romance readers, and specifically like women romance readers in my audience who weren't really buying any of my books. And like my fiction books. And I was like, this is like, I don't understand. Like, you like my nonfiction writing, you like me, like, what's happening? And they all said roughly the same thing. Like, I just want to read romance because I know, and mainly by women and not people that look like you, because like y'all fridge women constantly, just like you are just gonna fridge these women, and like I'm like, oh, like that's your concern. I that wasn't even on the radar of a thing that I would have thought about in like 5 years,
Mhm.
but by like since I knew it, I could say things like, oh, like the women are the heroes. Like they're getting exactly what they want. Like they are like the journey is their journey. Like they all or like they win in the end. Like I started being really leaning into the noble bright piece because like one of the great things about romance is like there's a happily ever after. You know that no matter how bad it gets, there's always a happily ever after. So like it lets you do a lot of fucked up. Don't know why I'm telling you this, but like, let's do a lot of fucked up shit because you know there's going to be a happily ever after at the end.
Yes.
And like in the same thing with like noble bright fantasy, you're like, oh well, there's always going to be a happy ending at the end. Like they're going to do the thing that they need to do. It's going to be a happy ending, and that psychology allowed me to know, oh, if I want these readers to read my books, I have to like tell the story this way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's what it boils down to is understanding what the drivers are for different people and figuring out how best to communicate with them. What's the messaging supposed to be? And
Mhm.
sometimes you have the most unexpected people who are interested. You know, a lot of people don't realize that 20% of romance readers are men. They tend to get excluded from our attention. But when you think about consumer behavior, in a lot of ways, that's the equalizer. Yes, there are certain things that tend to be more gender specific, but there are a lot of things that are also very fluid that work across whatever the gender identity is because we as humans tend to work in really rather predictable ways.
I
Yeah,
was just taking a newsletter class and she said to use a trope card, which is very popular in romance. You get your book cover and little arrows pointing to the book cover, and you list off the tropes.
Mhm.
And readers use these as shopping lists,
Yeah.
obviously. Touch her and die. I want that in a book. And so the newsletter teacher was saying the trope cards kept getting more clicks because there were more ways that the reader could see they might be interested versus a graphic with your book cover and some flowers around it.
Mhm. Yeah, it does because again, those are the trigger points. Like we have so many stimuli bombarding us all day, all of our senses. And so we learn how to filter through all these stimuli and pick the things that are going to be important to us. And once we do that, then we start to kind of digest that information. And so it's the same thing. We're bombarded by all of these different prompts for, what we want to buy, what we want to do. But when a reader sees a trope card, it narrows down so they know, okay, it's a book. I'm already interested in that. Let me weed out even more of this and look at what the tropes are. And it gives them a very specific call to action, even if we don't use it in so many words. By listing what the tropes are, that is a call to action because it's saying, here is what you are going to get. In return, you're going to want to buy this book. It's a silent call to action.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love this, and man, it makes me think I have to do a bunch more trope cards now
I
because I
know.
just haven't done
That's
it.
what I realized. Okay, the trope cards are important. Marketing is so on the nose. As someone who, we all can write 100,000 words to tell our story.
Mhm.
And then you get, 60 characters, which includes the spaces.
Yeah.
And you need to communicate quickly. And even in less than fraction of a second, which would be your book cover.
Well, and I think it's also important for people to realize that writing fiction is one thing. Creating and crafting these stories that have never existed is one action. But coming up with marketing um, deliverables or assets, that's nonfiction writing. You are writing the fact of what something exists. And those are not necessarily equally easy skills for people. So when you realize that your marketing is writing nonfiction, I think in a lot of ways that helps reframe things for people. And it's not so daunting because it's not this idea of, I have to come up with something like you do. You come up with a fiction story. You're using fact when you're coming up with your marketing assets. You already have things in place. You just decide which elements do I want to talk about in a factual manner.
Mhm. Yeah, and like what am I trying to convince somebody to do, and like how am I going to do it? Like these are like journalism questions: who, what, where, when, why. Like
Mhm.
there's these like I talk about. I did not think if 20 years after my journalism degree I would be using the upside down pyramid almost every time I talk about something. But the upside down pyramid is like the most important thing has to be in the first paragraph, and then you can expand on down. But like you have to do you have to write the whole article often to know even what is the first paragraph of that article. But then like that's what you get, and then you can keep people engaged throughout the thing. And in nonfiction they say like you should only be writing 800 word articles, and I say maybe you do, but I am a great writer, so like I can actually keep someone entertained for 5,000 words. And the minute that like you can do that, the one of the main ways to do that is to know that like what the goal you're trying to get someone to do. And it's that first bit is the trope is the factual thing. They say I want these things, but they don't know exactly how they're going to get it in your book, or like why they are going to get it. And like that is the delighting part. Like, and so often we think that it minimizes the book to talk about it in 2 sentences, but like it actually shows mastery of the book in a way that like is very hard to know like what a book is about until you actually say words about it.
That log line, the bane of my existence, a log line. This is why I'm not trad, y'all. I don't want to do a log line or a query letter.
Well, and it's also hard when, say, you want to do a pre-order and you haven't written even the first word of the book. If you're a plotter, you haven't put anything down. If you're a pantser, you sure as shit don't know where the kid's going. Like the wind blows in a different direction every day. And so it's really is truly difficult to write marketing materials that are nonfiction when there isn't something concrete to talk about. So it's not surprising that authors find this challenging because it is a different type of writing than what many of us excel at.
When I consult with people, I always ask them what their magic trick is, because like every writer has a magic trick. Like, and once you see the magic trick of like Andy Weir or Colleen Hoover, Andy Weir's magic trick is human in space against impossible odds, taking control of the situation and being hyper competent. Colleen Hoover is like damaged woman takes control of her life and like finds love along the way. The love is like not the necessarily reason why she like succeeds, but like it is like she does it on her own terms. And like every writer has a magic trick. We were just talking about this earlier today. Like some of the reason why I don't like some books by some authors is I'm like, oh, well, like they don't understand their magic trick enough to like do like this book just didn't do the magic trick. And if you know what your magic trick is, then you can like do it. Then you know what every book is going to be about. This is a very Forrest thing to say. So like, but
do
yeah.
you know your magic trick? I'm writing that down along with
No, I'm
book.
thinking, I'm like, do I have a magic trick? What's my magic trick? What should I practice?
Yeah, and it's and like once you know, well, it makes the marketing easier for every book, for especially for Forrest. Like Forrests are great at doing marketing before they even if they're pantsers, even before they do a thing, because you're like, oh, the book's going to be this thing. Like clearly it's going to be about this theme. Like there's going to be these 7 things. Like I've written 80 books, and every time I'm like, oh, well, that's just me back on my bullshit again. Like, I'm just like, obviously, like I was like, I tell people, I'm like, how many times can I destroy the fairy realm, the underworld, and heaven? Like before, like it's like that's like if I'm doing a long series, almost guaranteed those 3 things are going to happen because they've happened in every long series I've ever done.
I really feel this way about Frida McFadden, like 3rd grade reading level or below. And she does the magic trick every time. There's just an epic twist. She delivers the twist, and every book you're like, what's the twist going to be? And then halfway through I go, why am I reading this? And I go, oh, right, there's a twist coming. Let's see if it's good. And then she does it, and I go, that was pretty good. Okay. and
Yeah.
she's hitting number one and whatever, and she just delivers that, and I really appreciate her single-mindedness.
Well, I mean, that boils down to that brand promise. That's what it is. It's what can readers come to rely on. So the magic trick is what do you excel at? And what you excel at becomes your brand promise. Whenever you read an X person's book, you are going to get these themes, in amongst the varying tropes, and you can come to rely on that.
Yeah, and I can rely on that as a marketer too, as like on the marketing side of my life, like I can rely that like this is the brand promise. And when people ask me when to do a pen name, like I tell them, I said, when do you break the brand promise? Do you break the brand promise in the series? Because like if every series has a different brand promise, then like you want a different pen name for every series. But if like it's a similar brand promise or the same brand promise across multiple series, you probably don't need to like change your pen name unless you really, really want to, and you have the energy to like satisfy another pen name. You don't need to you don't like people will read. The reason why Forest people read across so many different genres is like the brand promise, the magic trick is the same. So like I've only had maybe 2 books in my entire career that break the brand promise. And people hate those 2 books, or they're very divisive on those 2 books. They're the only books that get like consistently negative reviews on them because like they are not Noble Bright books. Like they don't end in the way that all of my other books end. And like that's what people expect. So that brand promise is like actually to me gives you tons of freedom because you're like, oh, I can do whatever I want as long as I deliver the magic trick in this world.
Absolutely. And for me, for example, I do have 2 pen names, and I opted to do a second one because I moved from historical to contemporary mafia. And while I know how closely those overlap, other people do not always believe that they are essentially the exact damn same thing. They absolutely are. And I have plenty to say on that. But I chose to separate them so that it would be clear those who want my historicals get Celeste, those who want my contemporaries get Sabine. But at the heart of it, it's still me. The brand promise is the same for both. You will always get stories about family, love, honor, duty, and loyalty. Those are the 5 themes. Does not matter what the tropes are. That's what you're going to get. That's what my readers on both sides know. And so in theory, I really could have kept one pen name. I don't regret that I've split them apart, but that is something that people can rely on. Like you can, I can't even think of what the phrase is that I'm looking for, but you can like bet your last penny or your last dollar on that because I've chosen that to be, I guess, my magic trick or my brand promise, that's something that wherever the story may go, whatever I come up with in the grocery store, that you are going to reliably get that. And it's really important to readers to know what that is very clearly. It should be what they're able to pull out of stories consistently. So that's a craft side. But on the marketing side, they should be able to tell what that brand promise is through the continuity of your marketing materials and assets, the tones in which you communicate with them. You can have a variety of graphics, but there still needs to be, some overall style and cohesion so that when people see your image, they see your cover, they see your name, they see, your messaging, immediately they are able to know that is a so-and-so's book, no doubt about it, right? Because that triggers the emotional memories that they have of, oh, I felt really excited, I felt really sad, I felt really angsty, I felt really whatever. It triggers that emotional memory that compels them to want to repeat that, assuming they had a good time with it the first go around. But that's what you're trying to do with a brand promise.
So people talk about branding. Now we got to talk about branding because it's my favorite hobby horse topic. And I know it's one of yours too, because like people always discount the brand part of this, but like well, then they say, why is marketing so expensive or I don't like marketing? And I'm like, well, if you don't like marketing, the easiest, cheapest marketing you could possibly do, the thing that will carry forever is like great branding. If you have a great brand, like it will carry. You may never have to do other marketing, but like if your brand looks like this and people don't know what they're going to get, and like you don't have house fonts, you don't have all of these things that like are cohesive, no matter when someone gets to your thing, they're not going to be able to easily do all of the stuff. So you can make a choice. You can have a terrible brand and like you're probably gonna have to spend more on marketing, or you can like spend the next month or even week or day, I don't know, like getting your marketing and getting your branding in order. And then like that's going to make literally everything else about your life easier.
Yeah, in my 7-figure author course, I talk about a signature series because the truth was I don't have a graphic design or branding background, so I didn't have a good logo. I didn't have a great website, but my series covers were excellent and I delivered the brand promise to the reader throughout that series. I would brand within a series. And so the Sci-Fi Omegaverse is going to be the jewel tone covers, the same fonts. And that was my biggest marketing, is just putting the books up because book 5 sells book 1. And when I talk to authors who are struggling, they might not be clear on what they're doing, you know, and they might just still be experimenting and figure it out. You have to figure out, can I write a book? Can I write 50 books in a series on this one, world and fictional playground and continue to deliver that brand promise? You might not be able to do it. And then you need to jump ship and you need to figure out what you can do. But my Bad Boy Alpha series with Renee consistently makes over 7 figures a year. Every book we add to it, we're at 28 now, sells the book 1. And every time we put book 1 on sale, that grows our reader base so that we can sell the next book we're in the works writing. And it's pretty simple. It's not always easy, but 11 years in, I'm going, well, I did that right. And that allows me to make a lot of mistakes.
Simple and easy are not synonyms, right? So something that it seems very simple is not always that easy. Something that starts out complex can get wheedled down to something that's simple, but that process is not always easy. And we start, anybody who's beginning a business starts with the complex when you're trying to identify all these different elements of what your brand is, what your business is going to do, what it's not going to do. And you have to work your way through and, funnel it down until you do get to something simple. And, when you talked about the class that I did for you and that slide deck, that's what I was really talking about, is looking at that big picture of what emotions do you want to create, and then wheedling it down until you can give a single sentence that states your brand promise. And that may not be one that you ever share with the world. That can be a totally internal sentence that is simple and bare boned, but it's to the point. It's your guide. I really hate in general mission statements and vision statements. Like, I find them so stupid and cliche, but that sentence gives you that. It kind of is that guide of what your purpose is that you can come back to. And when you can distill that into a single sentence, then you can start to think about both the craft side and the marketing side.
Yeah, I tell my wife all the time. Oh, sorry. Do you have something to say, Lee?
God, yeah.
That you can tell how masterful someone is by how rudimentary an object they can use to still create something great. And so, like, there's a story about Picasso writing with like doing like 3 lines and saying, "This is $20,000," and like it took me a lifetime to get that way. But I really think it's like, that's the thing with a great like company or a great brand. We had that episode science of scaling episode with Heather a few months ago, and that was basically the thing. Like, if you want to scale a thing, it has to be stupid simple. Like, it has to be so simple that like a person can know what it is by just looking at an image. And it has to be easy enough to share that without doing any work, you can just be like, oh yeah, I'm going to share this with 3 friends. I know exactly who would love that now.
My internal guideline for all my books used to be make them laugh, make them cry, make them wet. Maybe too broad of a brand promise, but
I love it.
I don't think that is. I think that's actually a really good brand promise because it gives you a lot of different leeway of how you're going to go about that. And when you write in multiple genres, the goal is still that, but how you get there may vary. And, I along the lines of that idea of something simple, I always think of a potato. Bear with me for this analogy. With a potato, you can make electricity, you can make vodka, and you can make French fries, right? All from a potato. And so knowing that you can start with the same base, but it can go in different directions is important because some people are going to want those French fries, some people are going to need electricity, and some people are definitely going to want that vodka. So how do you look at the people who fundamentally want a potato, but then target the ones who want the different versions of that potato?
Yeah, I got a bunch of emails early in my career that was like, this book makes me feel like I have agency in a world that's like that's trying to take it away from me. And I was like, that is a great brand promise. Like, if you read any of my books, like, it is about having agency and taking agency and getting to escape whatever condition you're in. And like, I've written literally every book back here is
And your
very different.
nonfiction. Your
Yeah, that's what I
nonfiction.
mean.
Mhm.
Literally everything I've ever written is about taking control of your career, your life, getting agency for yourself. Like, and when you look at that, you're like, oh, well, that leads you to literally 80 plus 150 projects that I've done. But like, if someone wants to distill it down to one thing that I do, like, that is the thing. And that makes it very easy to be like, is this about agency? Does this help me have agency? Is there a way to make this about agency when I meet with clients or meet with like we did the Soul to the Berserkers book, and like that book is like about a woman who finds like her voice and like takes control of her life even as she's being sold to these like two hulking men. And like, sure, there's a lot of sex in it. There's so much sex in it. There's literally, I spent a whole year looking at penises, but like it is.
Is one of my brand promises.
Mhm.
I heat. So
Yeah.
I I have that in every book except the nonfiction, which I guess is why the nonfiction is under a different pen. But if I write the universe is my sugar daddy, then I could put it under both pens.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Well, and I think, mentioning the feedback that you've gotten from readers, for some folks, it can be really daunting to try and figure out what is this magic? What am I known for? What is my voice? It's hard to engage in that self reflection. Maybe you can identify it in others, but you're looking at yourself going, I don't know, I just write words. Look at your reviews. And, now there are tools available to help you aggregate things if you don't want to look at them one at a time. But find the common denominator. What keeps coming up that readers are like, oh my goodness, you have to get this book because. And that will help you figure out what that brand promise is and what you are excelling at. And I know some folks say, oh, reviews are just for the reader and don't do them. If you don't want to, you don't want to. But I love reading my reviews because it helps me to figure out, am I still, sticking it? Am I still getting what readers want? And then there are also ones that I read that are not very nice. And I'm like, well, bitch, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And that makes me feel good too. So,
That yeah.
You
So
want to attract as much as you want to repel. The stronger you're attracting the correct audience or reader, the stronger you'll be repelling the ones who aren't going to be a fit. But when I was thinking of, what's your magic trick? It was like, yeah, if I take out breeding, I'm going to be disappointing the readers who are there for that. And maybe I'm just trying to do something different. There are readers who complain if the heroine ends up with a baby or doesn't end up with a baby. Who am I going to disappoint? But I'd rather have a massive audience of readers who know I'm going to deliver whatever they want, the baby, the obsessed hero, every time. And just let the readers who don't want that read someone else.
And I think that's a really key point that folks often miss when they're writing ad copy and blurbs is that you are trying to repel people just as strongly as you're trying to attract them. This is a weeding out process when you are writing copy and writing blurbs and things like that. You're not just trying to tell the people that you already know love these books that this is the particular one they need to read next. People stumble across books in a number of different ways, because of algorithms, because of search results, because covers are pretty. But when they read that blurb, they need to also know, oh, this is not my jam. Like I am not an open door, basically in bed with them. So Celeste and Sabine are not my jam. Like I am, a clean and wholesome reader. That's okay because I don't want to have readers who are not into my sorts of books read them because I don't want returns. I don't want bad reviews. I don't want a bad reader experience overall. So that's a sticking point that I think a lot of people don't realize when they are writing their copy, that they are trying to repel people just as much as they are trying to attract people, because you're wheedling them down to who really is most likely to not just read that book, but then come back for more.
Yeah, and if you're worried about like, is your branding right or if your book's right, if you know your brand promise, you can read reviews and say, oh, that person just doesn't get it. Like, but then if you see like 10 in a row, you're like, uh-oh, I think my brand, like, I think I need to maybe redo this series or redo a thing because none of these people are getting it. So like something is wrong. And so I just have to applaud you.
I'm going to pause you there for a second. It may not be that your brand promise is off. It's all of your packaging.
Right. That's fine.
That your brand promise is fine. It's just going out to the wrong people.
Right.
So if people are consistently saying, what is this? You may not be doing anything wrong. You're just having the wrong people come to you.
Right, exactly. Okay, so I just have to applaud you because that was a masterful transition. Like Booksprout's not paying you nearly enough money, whatever they're paying you, because like that was an amazing transition from what we were chaos we're talking about to the thing you want to talk about. So I'm gonna just like give you one more clap and then say like you now work with Booksprout, and Booksprout is a company that can help you with this. So like, do you want to tell us about Booksprout? Because I actually love Booksprout, so I'm happy to talk about it for a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you. Booksprout is a company that I came across when I was entering into book 3. And that's the point where I really started to understand the business. Books 1 and 2, I was like, I have a story to tell. Let's see what happens. Maybe people will like it. And by book 3, I was like, well, not only do I want people to like it, but I want to make a good amount of money out of this. And so in learning about the business, I learned about arcs and sending out those advanced copies. And it was sort of through word of mouth that I discovered Booksprout. And I have been loyal ever since. I've been using them since October of 2018. So I am a user of the product long before I became part of the team. I am the head of marketing, and that's only since January. So what Booksprout does, if you're not familiar with it, is it handles ARC distribution. So you will set up a campaign, you'll upload your manuscripts in there as, EPUBs, PDFs, those sorts of things, and then it will disseminate those files out to the ARC readers.
Well, you said it now 5 times. Some of these people aren't going to know what an ARC reader is. You got to like it. Oh, all right, great, wonderful. You want to make sure.
I did have that 15 years in the classroom. Have some faith. So they're going to disseminate it out to these readers. And the point of these readers, the reason why folks are on this platform as readers is sort of multifold. But one of them is they like to be able to get these books before they're released ahead of time. That's generally how ARCs are used. They're getting the books book exclusivity from the get-go. So that's a motivator for some people. The genuine want to support authors is part of it. So they'll download books because they want to help authors. They know how important reviews are. And then some of them, it's an economical decision, right? That they're able to download these books for free to be able to read because they may have a mild to severe addiction to reading. But either way, the idea is that they get the book in advance, they read it, and then they write a review, and they'll post these reviews on retailers, on BookBub, on Goodreads, within the native Booksprout platform as well. One thing to be cognizant of is that you can't require reviews. Legally, you're not allowed to require them. So you may have some folks who download your book, may or may not read it, and then never post a review. One of the features that Booksprout has in this ARC distribution management is setting, whether or not somebody can get another one of your books if they have an outstanding book. They have to upload the links to their reviews onto the site in order to be marked complete, but also so that you can check them out. You can see what they're doing, whether you are in agreement with their style. So you can also, if you already have an ARC team, take your list of people, migrate it over to Booksprout in order to work with the folks that you already have. If you don't have an ARC team at all, which is where I was when I first got started, I built a readership and an ARC team through the discoverability on Booksprout. So nobody knew who I was. Nobody knew what I wrote, but I used Booksprout as a way to not just get the reviews, but to get my name and my brand familiar with readers who would want to come back for more, who would want to support me. And so through the search features, as well as, just the category features that Booksprout has, it is a way for readers to find new authors that they may very well fall in love with. And it's a way for authors to find readers that they might not otherwise know how to approach. But the idea fundamentally about it is to make your life easier with your ARC campaigns, to make the distribution of these files, the management of the readers and their uploading of their links to show that they've completed as easy and no fuss and hands off as possible. I am not a micromanager. I have no inclination to chase down grown-ass adults to find out whether or not they've done what they said they were going to do. I'm not going to email you and say, where's that review you said you would do? No, Booksprout takes care of that for me so that I can focus on other parts of the marketing, the other parts of the launch that I want to fulfill.
Okay. So ARC team specifically. So it's specific. This is specifically for before books come out. Advanced reader copies.
So I will give the caveat, though, that if you are wide or you are in KU, but you pull your book down momentarily, you could launch another review campaign at any time. It doesn't have to be strictly before the book is released. That's typical. Yeah. But you could do it even with an older book. Sorry, Lee, what were you going to say?
I do that all the time. I use it as a find new rabid readers network.
Yes. So, I mean, reviews, I guess we should end as we're getting to the end here about why are reviews even important? Why do I care? Why do I care about reviews? Can someone just buy my book without reviews?
Well, reviews offer a few different things, and depending upon your potential consumer, they're looking for certain elements. It's social proof, right? It's a way of saying, hey, I will probably like this book because it's good enough that other people have read it. This many, hundreds or thousands of people have read it. They're rating it at this amount. The best advertising will always be word of mouth, and it's free, right? So the more people that you can have advocate for you, the more cost efficient and the better it will be. It also helps readers figure out what's the gist of this story. In some cases, you do get a nice full book report that tells everything, but a solid review will give just enough about the story for the reader to say, I'm enticed by this, or, this isn't for me, and that's okay. I'm going to pass on this. It's something that you can pull quotes from for your advertising assets. It's things that you could use in order to encourage other authors to do swaps with you to say, this is the average number of 5 stars I have, whatever it is. If you do direct sales, that's something that you can put on your website as saying how many, 5-star reviews you have, because when you're doing direct, you're basically building a new retailer of your own. And so you may not already have tons of reviews. That may not be a site that tons of people choose to review on, but you can say, I have this many over on Goodreads or this many over on BookBub. But it lends validity to your argument that I have a good book you want to read.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to bring up one thing as we wrap to a close, where there's a bunch of people on your list who can't afford to buy your books, but want to support you.
Mm-hmm.
And they have been trying to think of a way to say this. So like they have some amount of guilt about not being able to maybe do that potentially. And this is a great way to like let them flush that stuff out of them. Like they want to help and they want to help more than just sharing or commenting or your thing. Like they love your book. Maybe they're not going to be able to get to it for 6 months or so. So like they want to, but they want to support you during the launch. I don't know that reason, but like we have historically had a scenario where like people who buy good, people who don't buy, I don't want to say useless, but I'm going to because that's like just what historically people have thought in the publishing industry where like, and like there's this middle ground where like there are people who know you, like you, maybe even love you and trust you, but like they're buying that like bottom of the funnel bit just like for some reason is they're unable to finish that thing, and we kind of just like don't have a thing for them to do. They're just like, okay, well, like I don't know, just like dance or something, or like wait until you have money, whatever. But like having the ability to have people on an ARC team or like have a street team or like have things that they are able to do non-financially like is actually helpful to a certain group of people because like I don't know that like I don't know how to say it more than just like they have this weird guilt that like they want to do more but can't do more, or like maybe they bought a book and they still want to like support the book after, like they want to do more, and you should you should have mechanisms for people who want to do more to do more.
Absolutely. I mean, I think in most industries, whether they're products or services, you're going to have those super fans, the people who want to support that business. And in our case, they want to support the creative, the author, but it just may not be within their means to do that as frequently as they want to, especially if you read romance and you have a little bit of an addiction, it can be quite cost prohibitive to be able to, feed that addiction the way that you want to, short of living in a box under a bridge, right? So that ARC system works well because it is a reciprocal relationship. Yes, they are getting a free book with the expectation of a review, but they want to review because they want to support the author. It's not just about the free product. It is, I know that there's something expected in return, and I could go and do other things, but I'm going to do this because it helps support the authors. And that's why, some folks are like, well, I don't know that I want to give away free copies. I'd rather people buy them. Yeah, that's valid. I mean, I limit the number of ARCs I send out because I want people to buy the book as well. But this service in kind is really important. And so you may never make money off of these people directly. You might not be able to attribute $4.99, $5.99 to this specific person, but how many people could their review have convinced to purchase? How many people have they helped discover your books? How many people have they given validity to that you are worth the risk or the return? It's those sorts of things. You can't put a specific financial value on reviews, but if they weren't important and didn't do them, then sites wouldn't offer a space for them, and they wouldn't put the number of reviews and the average up at the top.
Booksprout is in one of these categories that are like a pretty low lift for what you get in return and like not that expensive. It's like, okay, well, I don't like it's not that expensive to go and like set up an ARC team and like have them go and find ARCs for you. Even if you only get 5 of people doing that, like in a campaign, that's still 5 more reviews than you have. It's in that same way where like book funnel. It's like a story, whatever the thing is, it's like, okay, well, like whether you'd want to do group promos or not, there's like literally almost no cost to do it. So you should just like have it in your arsenal to do, because if you get 1, 2, 5 a month over the course of like a year, that's 50, it's over 50 reviews on a book, and you are spending almost no energy on it.
Absolutely. And it is, in the grand scheme of things, one of the least expensive services in our industry that packs a huge punch. And I know when I was getting started, I was on a very frugal budget for it. So I tried out the free platform, the free version of it. And I was like, oh, this was really easy. This worked. I found readers that I didn't know about. So then I moved up a tier and I was like, oh, even better. I don't really know a ton of readers yet to refer them, but people are finding them here on the platform. I didn't have to do that much. And then I moved up another tier where I am now. And I am a prolific writer, so I do use the platform a lot. But as many people as I send to my ARCs by having the links, I still get brand new people to me, and they will say in the review, even though it's book 5 out of 6, this is a new to me author, and I'm so happy that I found them. And I know, because I didn't share the link necessarily in one of those huge groups where strangers are going to find it, that they must have discovered me natively on that platform. And, you know, not only do we offer the ARCs for ebooks, but there is also an audiobook component to it. And we've now most recently created different categories to make it easier for authors to identify for the reader what type of books they're going to get, to make it even clearer. And we do have a couple other features that are coming up that are in the works that the designers are working on. I will give a hint that there is a certain thing in our industry that is a hot topic that allows you to branch out into more marketplaces. And along the lines of that, because, you know, words matter in different languages, that we are going to be working on to help expand the platform use for people so that you can tap into even more marketplaces than just, English.
Awesome. That would be extremely useful.
I think folks underestimate the importance of reviews in non-English speaking countries because they don't know how to get those reviews. They're not any less important to consumers there. We just don't know how to leverage that.
Amazing. Where can we find Booksprout and such?
Booksprout.co.co. It's a really simple, easy to remember website. Hop on there, click around, find different things. We have a blog there that's growing. I'm putting in new posts now on a pretty regular basis that are about Booksprout, about industry topics. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. It's really simple. It's Celeste@booksprout.co.
Amazing. Lee, you haven't said anything in a while, much in a while. Do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'm just so glad you could be here, Celeste. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. You're two of my favorite people to chat with.
Same back at you. All right, everyone. We'll go like, subscribe, do things to Six Figure Author Experiment. Like, go find it on your favorite browser or whatever you're supposed to do and say at the end of these things. Find me at hapitalist.com. Join Lee's Millionaire Author Mastermind group on Facebook. And go find Booksprout as well. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening. For more, head on over to sixfigureauthorexperiment.com for archive access, resources, and more. We'll see you next time.